Hello YouTube, what is up? This is Mark bringing another video, and today, well, it's been a while since we did the last game guides. If you guys are new to the channel, I did a game guide for the AK-47 in January of 2020. I know it got a lot of views and a lot of good reception, so I wanted to make a follow-up one. Today, we are going to be covering another assault rifle in the game, a primary gun, and this one is going to be the M4. The M4 is one of probably the second most used gun in the game, right behind the AK-47 as far as assault rifles go. But let me just give you a quick little overview of the M4 and we'll dive right into it afterwards. The first thing with the M4 is its rounds. It has 30 rounds in each magazine, 90 in the reserve, making it 120 total for the entirety of the gun. I'm going to be comparing the M4 to the AK-47 quite a bit just because it is a pretty accurate comparison, and so throughout this video you'll hear some comparisons there. As it relates to the AK-47, the M4 has the exact same amount of bullets, but its cost is actually $2,500 rather than the $2,700 of the AK-47, making it the second cheapest assault rifle in the game. As far as damage goes for the M4, and the headshot for the unarmored opponents, it will get 116 damage. For unarmored opponents on the chest shot, it will do 42. For unarmored opponents on the abdomen, it will do 48. For unarmored opponents on the arms, it'll do 36, and for unarmored opponents on the legs, it will do 29. For the armored, you'll see here on the table, it will do 81 for the head, 29 to the chest, 29 to the abdomen, 25 to the arms, and 29 to the legs. So you can see here there is a bit of damage fall off when it comes to unarmored versus armored opponents, and that is compared obviously to the AK-47, where the AK-47 in almost every category beats out the M4 as far as damage goes. So that's one of the biggest downfalls of the M4 versus the AK-47. You're gonna have to put more bullets into a person to, eventually kill them in the game. As far as the recoil pattern goes, the M4 has a pretty simple recoil pattern. Honestly, it's actually just the exact same as the AKs, but just a little milder and a little easier. So it's up, right, left, right. So to counter that, you go down, left, right, left. Essentially, it's a pretty easy kind of spray pattern. If you guys know what the AK pattern is like, it's basically just a more mild version of that. So the spray pattern is much easier to control here. As far as the RPM, or the bullets per second, I like to do rounds per minute and then bullets per second to kind of break it down a little more. So I did some calculations here, did some timings. It's not the most scientific way to do it, but I kind of did a couple of trials here and averaged it out. What I found is that the M4 takes about 2.66 seconds to empty a clip of 30 bullets versus the AKs of around 3 seconds. So you can see there that the RPM is much higher there compared to the AK, which means that the bullets per second is around 11.28 bullets per second compared to the AK-47's 10 bullets per second. This means that the RPM of the M4 is around 676.69 compared to the AKs of 600 RPM. So essentially what this means is that when you're shooting with the M4, you're going to have more bullets coming out of your gun in a shorter amount of time. However, your gun does less damage to them. So overall, it's a very quick trade-off. I think it's a very accurate trade-off. So if you do have that less money to spare, that $2,500 with the M4 can actually save you quite a bit of money there, and it'll actually allow you to buy a flashbang, which can usually make or change the round. Moving on to damage per second, which is a very key indicator of a gun. I'm going to be covering that for the M4 right now. Assuming you hit all 11 bullets in 1 second to the chest, the M4 will have a damage per second of about 462 against unarmored targets, which is actually greater than the AK-47's of 440. But it actually has a lower DPS against unarmored targets of 319 compared to the 360 of the AK-47. In any of these cases, this is more than enough to kill 3 players, and is actually quite possible given its easy to control recoil and thus easy spray transferability. If you guys don't know what spray transferability is essentially it sounds exactly what it's like. It's the ability to transfer your spray from one target to another while continuing that spray without stopping. So essentially, because the recoil is so little, you don't have to think as much when it comes to moving your crosshair from one target to the next. As far as armor penetration goes, it's pretty simple. The M4's is 70% versus the AK's 80%. This means that the bullets won't do as much damage to unarmored or to armored opponents compared to unarmored, and we covered that in the damage section here. You can see that the AK's is generally quite higher compared to that of the M4's for targets with armor compared to targets without armor. So the armor penetration on the M4 is significantly lower. However, with the higher RPM, that usually makes up for it. As far as the reload time goes, the reload time for the M4 is actually slightly higher than that of the AK's. It's around 3.27 seconds, whereas the AK-47 is around 3.1 seconds. Now you might be thinking 1.17 seconds usually doesn't make that big of a difference, but actually in a gunfight, if you're rounding a corner and actually, the enemy comes and peeks around, that 0.17 seconds will make a huge difference. I'm sure if you guys ask pros out there, they'll know that 0.17 seconds is a lot in the game and it can make or break a round. In terms of the draw speed, the M4's draw speed is around 0.943 seconds, whereas the AK's is around 1.15 seconds. Now you see here, this is a trade-off in terms of reload speed versus draw speed, whereas the M4's reload speed is higher, the draw speed is much lower than that of the AK-47's, which means that once you pull, if you're running with your knife and you pull out the M4, you'll have a much easier chance and a faster recovery time to actually shoot the gun compared to that of the AK. As far as the movement speed goes, I'm just going to show a few clips here of comparing the Balisong knife versus the XD45 versus the M4. I reused some of the clips in the past, but you guys, it's a pretty simple clip, so hopefully you guys can enjoy that here. So moving out past the overall statistics of the gun, I want to give you guys some pros and cons to it. I know I covered a lot of numbers here, so I'm going to give you a little more qualitative feedback on what the gun actually does really well. One of the first things that it does is that it has a moderately quiet firing noise, which means that it doesn't matter as much in this game because it'll still show up on the radar. However, if you are sounding, it won't make as loud of a noise if it's across the map. So that's something to note versus the AK-47. So you can shoot quite a bit more and you might not get noticed as much. Additionally, there is a low recoil to the M4, like I mentioned before in the video. The M4 essentially is a smaller recoil pattern version of the AK-47, which means that it is really good for beginners who maybe don't know how to use the AK-47 or control that AK-47 spray as well. One of the big things about the M4 that I've emphasized throughout this video is the fast fire rate, a much higher fire rate than that of the AK-47. So this is definitely really good. And actually, a kind of a small tip here, if you guys are on different servers or if you're lagging, I tend to buy the M4 far more frequently than the AK-47 because of its fast fire rate. If you go around in pre-fire corners, the bullets will usually register faster because of that faster fire rate, and you'll be able to do more damage when pulling off, moves on servers that might lag you a little bit. The gun also has high accuracy, which relates back to the low recoil if used correctly. So if you're able to spray down quite a few of those shots, maybe in the abdomen or the chest area, it allows for you to do quite a bit of damage with that high accuracy. A huge plus is that it's cheaper than the AK-47. That $200 savings per round can actually allow you to buy flashbangs, and you can even drop those flashbangs to your teammates. So that $200 saved per round is a very big part of the game, and you can possibly do other things, maybe buy an upgraded pistol if you need to. So it being cheaper than the AK is actually a huge factor here. And overall, it does have decent damage, not the greatest compared to the AK-47, but the AK-47's damage is very, very good. So, the M4 does excel here where, it actually has decent damage. Some of the overall cons of the gun, the bullets do spread upon continuous fire. Like we said, it does have recoil. It's not like a lot of guns in the game where they have almost no recoil at all. It still has some recoil, so you're gonna have to mitigate that, but it is existent still. Due to its fire rate, it loses ammo quickly, so essentially what this means is that you really have to be accurate with all of your shots. If you aren't accurate, you're going to lose a lot of your bullets and you're going to end up reloading a lot of times. And we mentioned here that the reload time is quite a bit longer than the AK-47's, so you want to make sure that you are accurate, and if you're not accurate, this might not be the best gun for you. It's one of the only rifles that does not shoot one shot through Kevlar. As you guys know, the headshot with the armored opponent really does not lend to a complete kill. It's about 81 damage for against armored opponents, so versus that of the one tap of the AK-47, its signature move. So you're not going to have a one tap on the M4. You're going to need to shoot at least 2 bullets, one to the face and one somewhere else in the body when you're trying to kill someone with it. As far as tips for the gun, it's very similar to tips in terms of relation to the AK-47. Like the AK-47, I recommend you burst fire at medium or long ranges and spray at close ranges. And although because it does have better accuracy, it can be sprayed for longer than the AK-47. So if you do have that experience spraying at longer or medium ranges and you are pretty good at controlling that recoil, you should do that. But for beginners, I recommend you only spray at close range and burst fire, which is firing 3 to 4 bullets at a time and not spraying, 20, 30 bullets at a time. If you want to get quick kills, so you should aim at the head as it delivers more damage, to the head area. Another formidable strategy utilized by pro players when using this weapon involves crouching. So when you do crouch, it actually tightens up the spread and significantly increases the weapon's effectiveness for close to medium range weapons. It also allows you to essentially not worry about that vertical spray pattern that the gun loses once you actually get past that 15 to 20 mark of shooting the gun. So crouching when you use this gun definitely helps, and it actually is a good strategy to use for all assault rifles. And obviously, if you want to aim consistently at the enemy's head, when combined with crouching and burst techniques, this tends to require only 3 or 4 shots to kill someone. So if you aim at the legs, it's not going to allow you to kill the player as fast, but with a higher RPM, this is going to allow you to have some room to work with as long as you're shooting at the body. One of the best ways to counter the M4 is essentially to use a sniper rifle at far distances, as their accuracy is pretty good, and you're going to have a really good shot against shooting that M4 player because they might not have as good of a grip on the recoil pattern at long ranges. So even with burst fire at long ranges, the M4's damage will drop off, so I recommend using a U ratio or an M14 against the M4. That's really it for me today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this game, guys. I know it's a little bit longer, but I really hope that this was beneficial for you guys. If you guys want me to cover something else down below, maybe it's a map, maybe it's a type of play style, maybe it's anywhere from another gun, maybe a primary or secondary, things like that, leave that down in the comments below. Any grenades you might have. So I really want to see what you guys want to see next, because I think my plan was to do the P250, it's the starter pistol, but if you guys have something else in mind, let me know down below. If this does help, make sure you subscribe, because I'll be doing these every so often as well. So thank you everyone, and have a great day.